even in the standard liberal left reaction. Like greed, come on, greed was here, I don't know, at least from the moment when, as we learned from well-educated British scientists from 19th century, from I think it's 4005 BC when God created the world. I mean, some bishop deduced the precise time, a date. It was 9 in the morning on I don't know what date. So I think we should stop these stories, greedy bankers and so on and so on. What is basically happening, and I'm not an economist, so I will simply present you the best account that I found on this. And this is not a rhetorical offer. When I say I'm open to your critical remarks, it's not a pseudo-critical way to say I'm open to your praise, but I really want to see where I'm wrong. The idea is that an economic cycle, I think, is coming to an end today. A cycle which began in the early 1970s, the time when this same guy to whom I already referred, Yanis Varoufakis, in his interesting book recently published in London, The Global Minotaur, where what he calls, again, the global minotaur, how do you pronounce it in English? Minotaur? Minotaur, okay, I did it correctly, exceptionally, was born. The monstrous engine running the world economy from the early 1980s till 2008. That is to say, the late 1960s and the early 1970s were not just the times of oil crisis, stagflation, and so on. Richard Nixon's decision to abandon the gold standard for the US dollar was the sign of a much more radical shift in the basic functioning of the global capitalist system. By the end of the 1960s, the US economy was no longer able to continue the recycling of its surplus products to Europe and Asia. Its surpluses had turned into deficits. In 1971, the US government responded to this decline with an audacious strategic move. Instead of fighting, tackling the nation's growing deficits, it decided to do the opposite. I think this was, again, maybe the crucial decision. Ironically, I'm tempted to say almost a Lacanian act. No, instead of reacting in a panic, oh my God, the deficit is growing, what to do? They said, wait a minute, why not use it as a leverage? Why not even boost the deficit? This was marked in a quite memorable phrase by Ronald Reagan. I remember the time I was there, I saw it on TV. Once a journalist asked him, what about controlling, disciplining the American national debt? These are moments when you almost, I wouldn't say like Reagan, but kind of find it at least minimally funny. You know what was his answer? Our debt is old and big enough, he can take care of himself, you know. We don't have to worry about it. So, and then who would pay for these deficits, for the debt? Well, the rest of the world. How? By means of a permanent transfer of capital that rushed ceaselessly across both oceans, Atlantic and Pacific, to finance America's deficits. I remember already 10 years ago, I forgot who it wasn't Greenspan, but some big guy of American banking said in some international conference something very simple. He said, let's make it clear, United States need at least $1 billion per day from the rest of the world to function. These deficits then started to operate, now I quote again Varoufakis, to operate, quote, like a giant vacuum cleaner, absorbing other people's surplus goods and capital. While that arrangement was the embodiment of the grossest imbalance imaginable at the planetary scale, nonetheless, it did give rise to something resembling global balance, an international system of rapidly accelerating asymmetrical financial and trade flows capable of putting on a semblance of stability and steady growth. Powered by these deficits, the world's leading surplus economies, Germany, Japan, and later China, kept churning out the goods while United States absorbed them. Almost 70% of the profits made globally by these countries were transferred back to the United States in the form of the capital flow to Wall Street. And what did Wall Street do with it? It turned these capital inflows into direct investments, shares, new financial instruments, and so on and so on. End of quote. Although Emmanuel Todd's, the French sociologist and economist, vision of today's global order, he deployed it in his book After the Empire, although this vision is, I think, clearly one-sided, it is difficult to deny the moment of truth contained in it. That from, I claim, Nixon era, the beginning of 70s at least, United States are an empire in decline. Its growing negative trade balance demonstrates that the United States is the non-productive predator. As I already said, it has to suck up $1 billion daily influx from other nations to buy for its consumption, and is, as such, the universal Keynesian consumer that keeps the world economy running. So much for the anti-Keynesian economic ideology that predominated at least till today. This influx, which is effectively like the tribute paid to Rome in antiquity, or the gifts sacrificed to minotaur by ancient Greeks, this influx relies on a complex economic mechanism. The United States are trusted as the safe and stable center, so that all others, from the oil-producing Arab countries to Western Europe and Japan, now even Chinese, invest their surplus profit in the United States. But since this trust into the United States is primarily ideological and military, not economic one, the problem for the United States is how to justify its imperial role. It needs a permanent state of war, or at least emergency, so United States had to invent the war on terror, offering itself as the universal protector of all other normal, not rogue states. The entire globe thus tends to function as a universal Sparta. I think Sparta is a better metaphor than Roman Empire, which is usually used for our global predicament. Sparta with its three classes, now emerging as the first, second, and third world. A, the first one, the US as the military, political, ideological power, then Europe and parts of Asia and Latin America as the industrial manufacturing region, Germany, Japan, China, and the undeveloped rest, today's helots in Sparta, you know, those without any rights and so on, the living dead.